8 cases have been reported, including 3 deaths.
This is not COVID. This is not influenza. It spreads very, very differently.
I would say this just so the public in the Canary Islands, the men and women there, can be calm.
I really don't get why Spain allowed them to come in.
Really angry with the situation.
When you look at the fact that, dozens have left this boat after the first death, there is the potential there for this to get out of control, especially given the incubation period, isn't there?
Well, I think it's unlikely that there'll be transmission during the incubation period.
Are you pretty confident that mistakes haven't been made?
Well, the first thing to say is we are dealing with a completely different virus.
Do you think the protocols were followed in that situation?
It's too early to say here.
Contact tracing, self-isolating, hazmat suits and WHO press conferences. The Hantavirus outbreak is reawakening a collective trauma from the COVID years, but the WHO could not be clearer.
I want to be unequivocal here. This is not SARS-CoV-2. This is not the start of a COVID pandemic. This is an outbreak that we see on a ship.
Not the start of a COVID pandemic. Very reassuring. But for those who worry about these things, there are some causes for concern. Dozens of people left the stricken ship after the first death, potentially spreading the virus, which can take 6 weeks to incubate across the globe. And as some strains have a fatality rate of up to 40%, that is a little, worrying. Here's the WHO again.
While this is a serious incident, WHO assesses the public health risk as low.
I guess what's going through my mind here is that's the exact same language the authorities used 6 years ago at the start of the COVID pandemic. Here's England's Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, then.
The Scientific Advisory Group and the UK Chief Medical Officers have assessed this as currently a low risk to the UK and will obviously keep it under review.
And we know the risk ended up being rather higher. And because of institutional failings during that miserable time, public confidence is still rather shaky, the memories stirred too easily. For now, let's hope another pandemic doesn't emerge before the final official report into the last one is published. Well, Sir Andrew Pollard is a familiar name from the COVID pandemic, an infectious disease specialist and director of the Oxford Vaccine Group. He was chair of the UK government's Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation until last year and was a member of the WHO's Strategic Advisory Group of Experts. Sir Andrew Pollard, how worried are you?
Well, obviously, we have to think about those individuals who have been affected by the virus on the passenger cruise, but I'm really not worried at all about the wider implications of the virus and its transmission, because now that we know about the virus, we know how it's spread, the public health measures put in place should contain that spread.
But when you look at the fact that, dozens have left this boat after the first death, there is the potential there for this to get out of control, especially given the incubation period, isn't there?
Well, I think it's unlikely that there'll be transmission during the incubation period. So assuming those individuals are still well and they've been contacted, as we understand, by the passenger company as well as by the public health officials. Therefore, we should be in a position that they can be isolated, quarantined, to make sure that there isn't a risk to other people whilst they're in that period of incubation. And hopefully all of those will come out of that and be fine.
You mean unless they're actually showing symptoms, the chance of them spreading a disease they might not even know they have is pretty limited?
Exactly. And by the time they develop symptoms, now they've been warned, they can alert the health authorities, and that can then be managed and keep both the healthcare worker and other people safe from spread at that point.
So if you look at what the measures that have been put in place now and how this has been handled, are you pretty confident that mistakes haven't been made? When you think back to COVID and, I was talking about a sort of collective trauma there, you don't see some of the same mistakes being made in this situation?
Well, the first thing to say is we are dealing with a completely different virus. It's not a virus that spreads when you're asymptomatic, which is how COVID was able to spread before people even had any symptoms. And it does create quite a severe disease, so that you know you're unwell and you can isolate, and so people can self-isolate, and also we can manage with quarantining and contain the virus that way. As far as your question about were the mistakes, I mean, clearly we need to look in detail at exactly how the first cases were detected and so on. But passenger liners have protocols in place already, because we get respiratory virus outbreaks on them regularly, usually influenza. And so they already have plans about how to manage those when they do occur. And so obviously that needs looking at to make sure that was followed, but there's no reason to think in this case that it hasn't been.
But, you know, when you look at the fact that dozens of people left the boat after the first death, that is potentially concerning, isn't it? You think the protocols were followed in that situation?
Well, of course, we don't know the exact circumstances at the moment. That's, as I say, there's more information to come. But, you know, assuming it would, which you might not think initially, that someone becoming unwell on a boat is out of the ordinary. It happens all the time, and to all populations, that some individuals will become unwell. Clearly, when you realize there's an outbreak or there's something serious going on, you have to think very differently. But, you know, I think it's too early to say here whether with that particular point, whether there's anything further that could have been done. But, you know, there's no information at the moment to say one way or the other.
And when you heard the WHO speaking earlier, and you know, you're obviously hearing contributions from different countries, are you confident that the lessons of COVID have been learnt? That, you know, I appreciate completely what you're saying. It's a very different virus, and you know, take that on board completely. But do you feel that countries are working together in a way that they weren't at the start of the COVID pandemic?
Well, I think it's very clear here that the World Health Organization has, right from the beginning, playing an important role in coordinating between countries and their public health authorities. It is very complicated having people from so many different countries to try and pull together. I do worry that some countries are not contributing to the World Health Organization efforts more generally. But I think in this case, we're not aware of any reason to be particularly concerned that that has hampered coordination in this event.
Are you talking about China there?
Sorry, say that again.
Are you talking about China when you're saying some countries aren't contributing to the WHO more generally?
Well, I was thinking about the issues of several countries, including the US, have pulled their funding from the World Health Organization. It is that more general change in the relationship between nations and the World Health Organization. I think this is an example of exactly how complex international health is, with these viruses not respecting borders, and where we really need a body that helps bring us together and to make sure we're coordinating our efforts properly.
And, you know, when you listen to what the WHO was saying and you hear those calm words of reassurance, you can't help but think back to the COVID pandemic and the kind of language used then, as I said just a minute ago. I mean, do you think there is a problem that people don't trust the authorities because of the way the pandemic panned out? And that could be an issue if there is another pandemic, God forbid?
Well, we are, in this case, dealing with a virus that we already know, and we know how it behaves. So that, I think, is a very different situation compared with a pandemic of a new virus, where all authorities were trying to work out what the best response was and understanding how it was going to behave, how it transmitted. That's a completely different world. And I think that's why some countries made different decisions about how to approach it, with the timing of lockdowns, and the approach to vaccination as well was varied around the world, because we were all learning with a new virus. I hope that confidence in the system will be there for future pandemics, because we really have to rely on those public health authorities doing the best that they can and with new information. Well, of course, what we can do in advance of that is get a better handle on the different viruses that are out there, which could threaten us in a pandemic, so that we're better prepared than we were in the COVID pandemic for what we then had to do.
And I suppose that is the key concern, isn't it? That the final report of the official COVID inquiry isn't due until next year. We seem to be very slow learning the lessons. Is that a concern to you?
Well, I think the report is very wide-ranging, and a lot of aspects have been dealt with. And you'll be aware that the vaccine report came out very recently. And I think one of the really important pillars that we have to think about is exactly this issue of how do we make sure that we have a toolbox already of both vaccines and drugs to treat viruses when they do emerge. And that requires investment in research in the meantime.
You know, interviewing you again after all these years, it does bring back memories. Do you, when you hear about, you know, a virus circulating the world, does it sort of bring back memories for you as well?
It does in the sense that when a virus is unknown, but right at the beginning, you do wonder exactly what could happen next. But I think one of the things that when you're working in infectious disease, almost every week there is a small outbreak of some viral infection somewhere, which takes a little while before it's identified. And we find like in this case, it's a hantavirus or it's another well-known virus. But of course, when the patients first present, in a cluster of cases, you don't know that. And so that's why we really need good surveillance systems all over the world so that very quickly we can identify what the causes of these. And if it is something new, we're ready to react.
So Andrew Pollard, I mean, it's a grim story, but it's great to talk to you and hear your thoughts again.
Thank you very much.
Now, the author, Kathy Lette, has issued a call to arms to the sisterhood, and those arms may or may not be waving their bingo wings with pride. Her latest book, The Sisterhood Rules, takes a typically wry look at feminism. I spoke to her a little earlier, and just to warn you, she was, as ever, very frank. Kathy Lette, your new book, Sisterhood Rules, explores, and I'm quoting you, what happens when the sisterhood goes sour. So just explain.
Yes. Well, in all of my books, this is my 21st novel, can you imagine?
Wow.
I've always championed the sisterhood because it's still a man's world. We still don't have equal pay, we're still getting concussion hitting our head on the glass ceiling, and we're supposed to clean it while we're up there. But I have to admit that there are some women who need to go to the vets to get their claws done. Caroline Levitt, anyone? Pam Bondi. So I wanted to explore what happens when the sisterhood does go sour. So in this
You
book...
mean when women are not standing up for other women,
Not being
basically.
sisterly. Because, I think women are each other's human wonder bras, uplifting, supportive and making each other look bigger and better. And I'm wearing a wonder bra now, and it's so cool because, well, when you take it off, you wonder where the hell your boobs went. So never wonder where the sisterhood has gone. You know, let your cups runneth over with love for each other. But in this book, two sisters haven't spoken for 5 years because one had an affair with the other one's husband. When their mother goes missing, they have to come back together to try and find her. And they think that she's gone to a Dignitas clinic and they go rushing there to save her. But they find her actually dancing around a fire pit with a 39-year-old alpine horn player. So
having the time of her life.
Time of her life. And that's the other message of the book, is that women my age should have a sensational second act. Go forth and be fabulous.
And I want to talk about sex in the 60s and over in just a second. But I mean, the sisterhood rules made me chuckle. Be supportive, the wind beneath her bingo wings.
Yes.
Protective, think of yourself as a big pair of knickers. You've got her arse covered. Encourage her to think big. She no longer wants a man's seat on the bus, she wants his seat on the board. I mean, the overall vibe is that women need each other more than ever before.
Totally. I mean, if you think about it, the sisterhood is powerful. I mean, the Me Too movement started with one tweet and it brought down Harvey Weinstein. I mean, it's sobering to think that the Epstein files is only one person in prison and it's a woman. Not that she doesn't deserve to be there.
Although, you know, plenty of powerful men have been defenestrated. Well, not plenty, but a few.
Not one has really been brought to account. There's none of them in prison. So, you know, we've still got a lot to fight for. But the main message of this book is that the sisterhood is so powerful. You know, husbands come and go, but the sisterhood is forever. So, you know, never let a penis come between us. It's the main rule. And we've never done that. So we're obviously, we've bonded.
Of course.
Yes,
no
exactly.
penises in sight.
No.
I mean, you were talking about the second act.
Yes.
The idea that older women have a sex life. I mean, that is a bit taboo still, isn't it?
Isn't that just infuriating? I mean, I don't think women give up sex when they get older. They get old if they give up sex. So the mother in this book, her whole message is never put off till tomorrow. Anybody you could be doing today. And I highly recommend that, you know.
Well, you speak from personal experience because you were married for, what, 28 years?
28 years.
You got a divorce, you met your new partner
boyfriend
in the park.
That's right, yeah. And I have to admit that, you know, he's a younger guy. Younger guys adore you, don't bore you, and do all your chores for you. And, you know, they know that Mutual Orgasm is not an insurance company. That's also very attractive, you know.
I mean, so, you know, Goldie Hawn was saying the other day that, you know, sex in her 80s is better than ever. I mean, is that your message too?
Well, I think good sex is about being relaxed in your skin. And by this age, you know yourself so well. You know what you like and you're not afraid to ask for it. So I do all my research in a scientific, in-depth fashion over cocktails with girlfriends. And what I've gleaned is that women my age are having much better sex. Orgasms are longer and stronger. And so, there's a lot to look forward to. People always talk about the downside of menopause. And menopause is terrible. You sweat more than a royal reading the Epstein files. But once you get through that, it's the best time of a woman's life. No period cramps, no pregnancy scares. You've got all that tampon money to spend, you know?
Let's talk about the menopause because, it has been a taboo. It is no longer. I mean, you can't move for women talking about the menopause, it feels, which is great. But what do you feel about, for example, the Equalities Watchdog describing menopause as a disability? Are you for that or against that?
Well, I do think that life for women is in 2 acts, and the trick is surviving that menopause. And it is awful at the time, the brain fog. I was on the phone once to my sister and I was going, I can't find my phone. Where's my phone? And she goes, Kath, what are you on? So, I mean, that is all real. But, of course, once you get the rocket fuel of HRT, you feel better than ever. So it is a horrible, brief
if you
thing.
Can get it. I mean,
if
there's
you
a bit
can get
of a
it, that's right.
lottery about being prescribed it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we have to admit, when we say it's a man's world, even God is a bloke. You think of all the things women go through for when you first get taken hostage by your hormones when you're a teenager, and then there's pregnancy where everything swells to sumo wrestler proportions, then there's childbirth where you stretch your birth canal the customary, 5-6 kilometres. Then there's mastitis, then there's the menopause, and just when everything goes quiet, you grow a beard. I mean, how could that be fair? I could make like a macrame hanging basket arrangement. But once you've got through that stage, there's just so much to look forward to because, women are brought up to be decorative and demure. All the research shows when a woman and a man start talking together, the woman always pulls back. But once you get to this age, you get a little bit more bolshy, a little bit more bold. You say what you think.
Then I mean, you'd be against the idea of seeing menopause as something that has to be catered for specially.
Well, the sweats. I think women have to be taken care of during that stage when they're going through the terrible sweats, where you feel like the Gestapo are trying to get a confession out of you. But that doesn't last all that long, and after that, women come into their true selves and into their prime. Right. But sadly, with the sexism, the psychological. It's sewn into our psyche, the sexism. A man my age is bigged up as a silver fox, whereas I'm written off as an old bag, a hag, a crone. You never hear...
Who can't possibly have sex.
Who can't possibly have sex, exactly. You never hear a man dismissed as mutton dressed as ram, ever. Yet I'm told what I can wear, what I can't wear, no short skirts, no décolletage, no upper arms. I mean, who are these fashion police bossing me around?
Show off the bingo wings in your...
Yes, I do. I like to show off my bingo wings, that's right.
I mean... One review of the book said that you're too fixated on sex. You plead guilty as charged?
Oh, totally good. Look at this couch. I'm already thinking, how can I put it to better use? I mean, come on.
She's christened the couch. And you didn't even show your pants. That was impressive.
I know, I didn't flash a fallopian tube. I mean, I would say to women that you really have to carpe the hell out of diem because adventure before dementia, not that I'm making light of that disease, but you never know what fate's got in store. So carpe diem like there's no tomorrow. Yeah. Get horizontal as often as possible. Swing off a chandelier with a toy boy between your teeth.
I mean, you're a walking one-liner, basically. I mean, every line is one-liner, which is brilliant. Just to sort of step back for a minute with your serious historical hat on, I mean, if you look at the sweep of history, women... The lot of women is surely getting better. If you look at voting rights, reproductive rights, you're shaking your head. You think things are worse now for women?
I think women's rights are slipping back all around the world, and I think we have to be vigilant because a woman born in America today has less rights than her grandmother. So there's the abortion bans in America. In Afghanistan, women are being erased. In Iran, never has a haircut been so political. And here too, in our own society, we've got upskirting and grooming and date rape and revenge porn and Andrew Tate and incel and all of those things.
Well, a lot of the things you just mentioned are fuelled by misogyny online.
Yes.
And I just wonder how, when you look at, for example, just today, Giorgia Meloni talking about being deep-faked and so on, and that's not the first time it's happened. Is a lot of the root of the new misogyny online, do you think?
Totally online, which is why it's happened when we haven't seen it creeping up on us. We have to encourage young men that feminism is good for them as well. We have to bring them into our movement.
Male allies, really.
Yes. And things aren't going to change until men do join us at the barricades. We need them there to support us. And sometimes men will say to me, oh, you feminists, you ask for too much. And I'm like, do we? What do we want? We like equal pay, that'd be great. We'd like them to work out that the Kama Sutra is not an Indian takeaway. Fantastic. We'd like them to help more around the house, which is in their interest because it's scientifically proven that no woman ever shot her husband while he was vacuuming. Be good in the kitchen. The way to a woman's heart is through her stomach. That's not aiming too high. Sometimes men say to me, what do you women really want in bed? And I'm like, breakfast, that'd be good. Breakfast and a good book for starters, yeah. So I don't think that's asking for a lot.
How much of this is because the tech bros are in charge, whether that's in the business world, but also in the US, politics?
Totally. I think it's the men in charge at the moment, especially the older ones, they're pumped up on testosterone, they're pumped up on steroids, they're mainlining Viagra, so they're going on forever, and they don't care about the future of the world. I mean, they're dinosaurs, so they prove that dinosaurs still roam the earth. In fact, I'm starting to think it's time we took the men out of Mensa. Just let women run the world. Just give us a chance. All the guys, go fishing, go train spotting or plane spotting, whatever you do. Just let us have a go at it, I
mean, Cathy, we've talked about serious stuff, but you're always incredibly funny. Are you optimistic always?
Well, I don't think optimism is an eye disease, which I know a lot of people in the world are feeling that way right now. I think the sisterhood is powerful, and I think we need to get angry again. I think we need to get really militant and just say enough is enough, and take over the world. That's my dream.
But you are, I mean, this isn't, a lot of comics have a sort of the dark nights of the soul. I mean, you are genuinely optimistic about the future.
Yes, and I think joy builds resilience. So I think it's really important that women get together as much as we can and laugh. When you go on a girls' night out, we've had a girls' night out, we had to be hospitalised from hilarity. We laugh so much. And I love that about women, that I think our humour is very different to male humour. Male humour is that they sort of tend to tell set jokes, whereas we strip off to our emotional underwear in 3.6 seconds, and it's a psychological striptease that reveals all. It's cathartic, it's candid, it's funny, and it's very bonding. So,
well, Cathy, you've revealed all on the couch, which has been great. No one's quite done that on the sofa yet, the pink velvet sofa, so thank you so much for being that person.
Thank you. Well, it is beautiful labia colour. I'm very thrilled with that. Fantastic. No wonder I'm feeling a bit aroused. Yeah.
I'm so glad to perform that service.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy.
The author Kathy Lette on outrageously good form. Next, we're hearing from another leading lady. Well, now, as a former occupant of 10 Downing Street, Cherie Blair knows more than most how high-profile women in politics are subjected to abuse. But when I spoke to her recently, she was also keen to highlight how women in business could help their companies grow with the use of AI. Cherie Blair, are female entrepreneurs using AI in the right way, or is there still a kind of digital divide on gender?
Well, it's a mixed picture, in fact, Cathy, and that's what our research shows. Because are female entrepreneurs using AI? Absolutely they are. We did a survey on the same subject a year ago, and in the whole year, then we found 38% of the 3,000-odd women we were surveying were using AI. It's surged. It's now 82%. In a whole year, basically, women are absolutely engaging with AI, but the benefits of that are very uneven. So we're seeing that women are using AI, but they're using it in their business for the sort of customer-facing matters to save time, whether it's marketing or admin. But time is precious. But those functions don't necessarily get embedded in the business growth. Because really, AI makes difference to business growth if it's embedded in the engine of the business.
And it was interesting because recently the actor Reese Witherspoon got a bit of stick when she said, women have got to learn AI, as she put it, and she was accused of putting the burden on women. But do you agree with her that really it's, we've all got to get our heads around this new world, otherwise you're going to miss out?
Well, I think it's absolutely the case that we must make sure that everybody gets a fair chance to use AI and so that people don't lose out. And one of the problems I think our research has identified is that if we're not careful, we can actually be embedding already the disadvantages that some women have compared to men, and all women have compared to men, or some women have compared to other women. So those women, if you like, who have the time or have the education to be able to actually use it in these back office functions are getting the growth.
I just wonder whether you think that women are justified in their scepticism of AI, perhaps initially, you know, perhaps people are changing their views now, but when you look at what happened with Grok, for example, and, you know, nudification apps and so on, you know, you could understand why a lot of women, whether they're entrepreneurs or business people or just, you know, women everywhere would think, well, I don't think I want to have much to do with this.
Well, you're absolutely right, because this is one of the other issues we've found. So women don't have enough time. Women don't necessarily have the training. There's a cost of AI. And it's not just, even when you have free tools, there's still the cost in relation to your mobile data or the cost of your handsets. All these things are still costs. And women are rightly distrustful of AI precisely because of some of the things that you've just spoken about. And we need to do more about that. We need to make sure that AI and the industry in general is designed around women, to make sure there are more women in the industry, and also to make sure that the industry is designing products that actually meet women where they are.
We've seen governments, regulators starting to flex their muscles in this whole area, particularly in the UK. We've just had a law receive royal assent to ban nudification apps, for example. But the regulator, the watchdog Ofcom, has been criticised for being too slow to take action, you know, when it comes to abuse of women in the online space, in the AI space. Do you have any faith that regulators will get a grip in the UK, particularly when a lot of the players in this area are outside the UK? It's hard to ensure that justice is done.
Well, I definitely think if we don't try to make sure there's a level playing field and a place where basic decency exists, then we cannot give up on that for sure. But on you know, the other hand, of course, you're right. The government can't do everything, but we all have a responsibility, really, about how we behave to each other, whether it's in the real world, and we've seen that very vividly over the last few days, but also in the virtual world. And it's time that we started to think about, how do we behave in the virtual world? How are we treating each other? Are we being respectful?
Well, when you say that and when you talk about that, you know, you originally wanted a political career. You've seen women, you know, obviously you know a lot of women in the Labour Party and seen what they have to go through, what the abuse they have to suffer in the online world. Do you think it is putting women off entering politics, all of that?
Well, what you have identified about the abuse that our women politicians suffer is absolutely true. And though at the moment we've got more women in Parliament than we ever had before, also at the last Parliament, remember, more women left than men, precisely because of the kind of abuse and personal harassment that they were suffering from. And the interesting thing is, we find this echoed in the women entrepreneurs that we work with, where they find that they can often be put off using tools on the internet, because by doing so they are exposing themselves not just to business customers, but to people who are using the fact that they're putting themselves out there for business as thinking that they're putting themselves out there for availability. So we find, again, when we ask the women entrepreneurs, yes, over 70% of them have suffered some kind of sexual harassment or abusive behaviour on their business sites.
Cherie Blair there with some words of wisdom for female entrepreneurs. The Strait of Hormuz is, as we all know, effectively closed by the conflict in the Middle East. An armada of tankers is now heading west towards America's oil fields in record numbers to help fill the energy gap. Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, has this special report.
We timed it just right.
The thing that moves it all is your gas, right? That's your energy. That's what drives it to the wellbore.
It's always good to have the water behind the oil.
So it's
if
salty.
it's the other way, it don't come out very good. He can show you how it'll separate.
So here's your water. Run over the bottom.
So that's water that's come from kind of 10,000 feet underground.
And then up on top, that's your oil.
That's the good stuff.
Is there any other substance in the world quite as important right now as this stuff?
Oh, he's got to get the oil on the hand, too.
That's right.
Hand of a working man.
Crude oil, black gold, pumped fresh from 10,000 feet under the ground here in West Texas.
It's quite fluid, it's not too viscous. So it's quite light.
It's very light, yes, sir.
This is ground zero for one of the biggest stories of the modern age, a seismic shift in global energy, with America standing to benefit from the chaos in the Persian Gulf. Midland, Texas, the capital of the Permian Basin. If there is an epicenter of the shale revolution, well, this is it. Today, the Permian Basin, an 80,000 miles square area of oil-rich shale underlying Texas and New Mexico, produces more crude than nearly every other country in the world. It is a 21st century oil boom, making new billionaires every year.
Do you think it's here?
Today, hundreds of operators, drillers, contractors and landmen work this patch. You must be Judson. I'm Ed Conway. How are you? Thank you for having us. This is exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How are you, ma'am?
Judson Bennett runs Cheval Oil and Gas. Born in neighboring Odessa, he spent his life on these lands, rodeo, ranching, and eventually oil.
I made my living ranching. That's where it all began, was ranching. That's where my passion came from, and just wanting to be a cowboy. That's me roping. I was in Lovington, New Mexico at a jackpot steer roping. And this horse was an amazing animal because you could do multiple events on him. And so I just...
what was he called?
His name was Popeye. He was little but strong.
Was he?
So, yeah, Popeye was his name.
Do you miss her?
Every day, man. I love to rope. I love to rope.
Judson's taking me to a new acquisition, a well in the scrubland just outside of Midland. Once upon a time, this was a poor, mostly agricultural region. Today, nearly every old farm has an oil plant.
I've got like 6 wells right over in here. Like that's one of my wells over there. This well right in front of us is one of my wells. We just got through working on this well.
Okay. So you can hear it whirring away.
Yes, sir.
And what this is doing is just literally pumping up oil kind of slowly but surely.
And that's what this pump jack is doing. It's just going down and allowing the rod to do the work to pull the pump up, opens it up, lets the fluid come into the pump and start filling the tubing so the tubing can start allowing the oil to migrate to the surface.
And it's just oil, is it, at this stage? Or is it oil and gas as well?
There'll be a little gas in here, but mainly oil. Yes, sir. This well is just vertical, and it's roughly 9,800 feet.
9,800 feet. So
yes, sir.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
So
almost
is that
2
kind of
miles.
2 miles down?
Almost, yes, sir. We really thought we were cutting a fat hog 20 years ago when you could go 10,000 feet or even 5,000 feet. Like a mile was, you were, oh my gosh, did you hear? They went a mile, and now it's like, oh, so-and-so's going 5 today, you know.
Oh, really?
So it's just, that's another thing that technology has just kept this basin alive not only fracking, but just in general.
Fracking is a unique technology involving long drills running deep underground, horizontally fracturing shale bedrock with sand and water, creating cracks to agitate and release natural gas and crude oil. It has helped America to an energy renaissance and transformed this landscape. There are around 1 million of these oil wells operational across America today. That's 7 times the number of retail gas stations, 70 times the number of McDonald's. To fully appreciate what that means, you need to see it from above. Surveying oil infrastructure is part of what Dan's company does. Well, that and herding cattle.
You can smell the oil from those containers down those holding tanks, yes, sir.
Stretching off into the horizon, an unending vista of drills and oil wells, pools of fracking water, storage tanks, the hallmarks of a mammoth energy boom. A boom dependent on a lot of effort, a lot of investment to get each barrel of oil out of the ground.
So if you look up here, there's 3 drilling rigs right there.
These are the tall drilling rigs?
So these tall ones right here, yes.
Okay, so that's your fracking. That's basically the fracking happening right there. But those drilling rigs that are standing up, that's kind of sending down sand and water, pumping it down to kind of do that hydraulic fracking, as it's known. That's what's happening. And basically, there's hundreds of these all over, are there?
There's hundreds of them all over.
It's hard to get your head round the sheer scale of what's happening here, because these drills and wells extend all the way across the deserts of West Texas and New Mexico. A patchwork landscape of oil rigs, like a printed circuit board, visible all the way from space. And beneath the ground, a vast network of pipelines carrying that oil out across the desert, hundreds of miles to the coast. Many of those lines end up here in Houston. They call this place the energy capital of the world. It is a major hub for oil, gas, and petrochemicals. 10 large oil refineries, more than double the total in all of Britain, a port and a deep water shipping channel that makes this one of the key gateways for all that American oil. David Brazil has spent more than 20 years monitoring the numbers on America's energy industry. He's giving me a tour of the area, but one question looms large. How much more oil can America supply to the rest of the world?
Is this whole export operation kind of running as hot as it could?
No, it is not.
Oh, really?
No.
There's more that could be pumped.
We could still pump and export more.
Exports have jumped to a record high of 6 million barrels a day in April, partly due to emergency stockpile releases. But there is still room for more.
We estimate that on the Gulf Coast we have roughly 7 million barrels a day of export capacity.
So people in Europe wondering to themselves, okay, we've got this big shortage of oil and petroleum products. Where is it going to come from? This place could be a big part of that answer.
This place could be a very big part for Europe specifically, actually.
That explains why, out on the high seas, we are witnessing a striking phenomenon. An armada of empty crude oil tankers turning west in record numbers. Some are heading for this place, Texas City, just south of Houston. Out on the seas beyond this headland are scores of tankers waiting to make their way up the channel to fill up with oil, gas, and refined products. This is the surface manifestation of an economic crisis, the desperate response to an energy shock unlike anything we've seen before.
So what you're seeing is tankers that would previously have been going to the Middle East, to the Gulf, they're now coming here to the US, because basically this is the most reliable place to get your crude oil, to get your kerosene, to get your diesel and all of those other energy products that we're not able to get from the Gulf anymore. And that's why there is this kind of armada of ships coming in and going out here at Houston, but also down the coast of Corpus Christi and Louisiana as well. It's a complete change, a shift in the global energy market.
But extracting enough oil to help fill those tankers isn't as simple as you might think. One challenge is that whenever you get oil out of the ground, you also get gas. And strange as this will sound, in this case, that's actually a problem.
They're currently producing, somewhere in the neighborhood of 22.5 BCF a day of dry natural gas, which is more than there is capacity to get out of the Permian.
A lot of people will be killing themselves for, to have that much natural gas.
That's exactly right. And they are paying people to take it away. Last week, the price got to...
They're paying people to take it from them.
Negative $9 per MMBTU.
That is crazy.
It was wild.
Wow.
And so it's actually a cap on how much you want to produce crude because you can't do anything with the gas that's going to come out whether you like it or not.
So that's limiting their ability or willingness to pump the crude out of the ground.
Precisely.
Because there's too much gas and they don't have anywhere for that gas to go.
Yep.
So it just gets wasted. For me, from the UK, that's so frustrating. Because that presumably means we're not getting as much oil and gas as we could from America because the pipeline's not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet.
It is almost maddening. Right now, Europe and Asia have too little gas. America has too much gas. And the pipelines that could solve that problem haven't been finished yet.
The problem is there's right now not a lot of certainty that the current high price environment is going to persist.
So it's so what, because they think that maybe this will end and maybe, the Strait of Hormuz will be open again and that everything kind of goes back to normal.
Everything goes back to normal. We're just talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, there's the Russia angle too. What if Russia and Ukraine decide to get along and all of a sudden you've got a bunch of Russian barrels back on the market?
Back in the Permian, they're building those gas pipelines as fast as they can, but they're not there yet. And even once that's sorted, it's not even clear the oil price is high enough to convince producers to ramp up their drilling. After all, the defining feature of fracking is that it's not just like opening a tap. It takes drilling rigs and workers and time, and that costs money, lots of it.
And what's your message, for people watching it, particularly in Europe and Asia, who I guess are kind of even more dependent than usual on what you're doing here?
So I just say, bear with us. We're going as fast as we can, boys. We're drilling and completing these wells as quick as possible. And,
can you go faster?
We could, but that's where CapEx comes in. So if somebody wants to put up a bunch of money, we can drill as fast as you want. A lot of people are really nervous about the commodity price.
So only a couple of months ago, it was kind of the oil price was basically below your break even, and now it's well above. And so it's not a given when people are making these long-term investment decisions, right?
No, it's not a given.
After the oil shocks of the 1970s, America began to obsess about energy independence. But only in the last couple of decades has it achieved it, thanks to the extraordinary story of fracking in the Permian Basin.
This crude is how old?
Millions of years old. It takes hundreds of millions of years to really start producing.
Now, in the face of another historic energy shock, it is to this place that all eyes have turned. It is to America that tankers are now heading. But those expecting the world's biggest oil producer to save them with a massive spurt of crude might be in for an unpleasant surprise.
Ed Conway with that special report. Go on, ask me anything. Every week, both on this show and Sky's website, I'll be answering your questions on stories, my work, or anything else you have in mind. And we've already had some great questions, so here we go. Firstly, Timbers asks, why the move to Sky? Well, Timbers, I suppose the answer to that is that I've been 20 years at Channel 4 News. That's a long time to be anywhere, to be honest. And I needed a change. I needed a new challenge. And Sky came along and offered me my own show. And it sounded like fun. And there's a whole new format. We're doing things in a slightly different, slightly more informal way. And I'm having fun. So I'm 2 weeks in, well, not even 2 weeks, actually. And it's going well. I'm really happy with it. And I hope you are too. So next one, Sophie Lee Journo asks about my biggest life lesson from my 20s. I think this one would be worry less. I spent a lot of my 20s worrying about everything. And, you know, I was quite a sort of anxious person, really. And I think the older you get, the less you worry. And for me, at least, that's been quite liberating. I feel like I can take more risks with things, try new things. And so now I'm 51. And yeah, I feel like I'm worrying a lot less. So I definitely say to my 20-year-old self, it'll be okay. Peter Simpson says, I've always been curious as to why journalists outside Number 10 shout questions at a passing politician when they must know they're not going to get an answer. Peter, it's a really good question. A lot of people have asked me this, and, you know, I've been in outside Number 10 shouting questions at people like Boris Johnson and so on. I guess the answer is partly it's about the atmosphere of the place, the drama, seeing the body language of the politicians, but sometimes you do get an answer. So you've got to shout the question because you might get the answer. So in the past, I've shouted a question at Donald Trump and he's answered it. Likewise, Peter Mandelson. So you can get some interesting answers. Also, I seem to remember John Sargent, my colleague, years ago, shouted a question at Margaret Thatcher, and she sort of barged past him and it became known as the handbagging. And it told us something about her style and also her iconic handbags. It became a kind of defining moment. So I think you do learn something from the shouted questions. Now, Jake Mitchelton asks, how do you cope with fake news, propaganda and AI? Another great question, Jake, because it is with difficulty, I guess, is the first answer, because it's a huge issue. There's so much fake news and misinformation out there. I think there's a huge responsibility for reputable, responsible broadcasters like ourselves to get the facts right, check and recheck what you're putting out there. And I think there's a huge value in trusted broadcasters. Hopefully people know that they can trust what we put out amidst all the sea of misinformation out there. And finally, Kerry asks, do you have a stylist? I like the new jackets. Thanks, Kerry. That's great to hear. And I really like the new jackets too. I do have a stylist. She's called Jane. She probably wouldn't want me to mention her full name, but she's picked out some amazing clothes for my new show and I'm really happy with it. And also, I should say that there's a huge team behind. You see me on screen, but there's a huge team. There's makeup artists, there's hairdressers, all sorts of people, obviously producers and editors too. You see me delivering the news and talking about it, but it is a fantastic team behind the scenes, so thank you to them. Now, as you'll all no doubt be aware, voting has been taking place today in elections across England, Wales and Scotland. While the polls are open, broadcast regulations mean we can't discuss or analyse election issues, but we can bring you pictures of the political leaders out and about across Great Britain on polling day. You're seeing those pictures now. There they are, casting their vote. I mean, no prizes for guessing who they might vote for. I'm a bit disappointed we're not seeing any dogs in this picture. But there's the political leaders. Now, a reminder that Sky News will have full coverage and analysis through the night and tomorrow. From midnight, Jonathan Samuels will have the early results as they come in. More reaction in mornings before Sophie Ridge takes over at midday tomorrow when the bulk of the results come in. And later on at 7 p.m, we've got a special 2-hour bumper edition of this show for you. I hope to see you then. That's all we have time for, but we're going to leave you with the robot in South Korea who's been ordained as a Buddhist monk as part of the celebrations of Buddha's birthday. Until then, namaste.